Honestly, I have a tremendous fascination with hoarders, and I think that we all have some degree of hoarder inside of us. How many times have you kept something, an old pair of shoes, something that meant something to you, a basketball, that you're probably not going to use again, but it has sentimental value? That's hoarding. Anytime you do that. So, in that regard, I'm not that much of a hoarder. I don't attach sentimental value to very much stuff. I mean, a little wooden bear. It had a little drawer you can put stuff in. And I kept it for about a year, and then I was cleaning out a room, and I threw it away. Did you throw away that little bear I gave you? And I said, yeah. And she said, that really hurts my feelings. That bear should have meant a lot to you. You should have kept that bear for your whole life to think of me by it. It should have had a sentimental value. And I said, well, it didn't. I didn't really care about it. So, what I'm getting at is the greatest root of hoarding is usually related to sentimentality attached to things. And I don't do that very much at all. So that's why I don't think I'm a hoarder. I literally keep things when I think I can use them, when I need them for future projects or current projects. This television I didn't keep because I fell in love with it on first sight. No, there are parts inside of it that I want to literally solder into my robot and solder into my other projects. Like, I need the parts, and it's going to save me money. It's the only reason I grabbed it. And another aspect of hoarder then comes in. The person that collects lots of things that they say someday they might use, but deep down they know they probably will never get around to using it. Whether they're planning to fix it up and sell it, whether they're planning to use it in 10 years, they collect things that just basically will never be used because they're never going to get around to using it, and they know it, but they don't want to admit it, or they say, well, you never know. And it's when they break logic like that and say, well, you know what, I probably won't use it, but I want it anyways, just in case. That's where you have a problem. That's where it becomes a mental disease. When you're not able to be honest and face the facts that, you know what, you are not going to use that ever, so just get rid of it. You're not going to use it. Or if you are, you're going to use it so many years from now that you could have replaced it with something a little closer to the time that you'd actually need it. You'll find another piece of metal that you could use for that metal object you're planning to create in 30 years from now. So don't keep that metal object because you're not going to be using it anywhere near a reasonable time frame that justifies keeping that object. And so that's how you can separate yourself from a hoarder, is only collecting things that you're going to use within a reasonable time frame that justifies getting that thing when you got it. And if you won't be needing it in a reasonable time frame, then the space that it's taking up has more value than the value of that object. Every square inch of space in your house has a value. And so don't waste space with unnecessary stuff unless if that stuff has a decent value that justifies the space it takes up. The space that this TV is taking up is huge. Huge amount of space. And so if I was planning to use that TV in even a year from now, the value of that space to me is greater than the value of the parts contained in that TV spread out over a year. So let's say that this TV is currently renting out space in my room. And let's say that that space to me is worth $200 a year. You got to pay me $200 to fill that much of my room per year. That's how much that space is worth to me. And so if the parts in that TV were worth $1,000, I'd be willing to keep it there for up to 5 years. But if they're worth under $1,000, then the amount of time I'm willing to keep it in that spot would go down. And eventually it's not worth it, then the TV's got to go. So that's how you can kind of logically determine whether something's worth hoarding or not, and for how long. And I wouldn't even call it hoarding, it's just like storing. Storing is okay, but when you get out of control with storing, or you're not being logical about it, then it becomes hoarding, then it's a problem. So as long as you don't have it turn into a problem, then you should be fine.